Hello everyone, today we will talk about epidemics, against which COVID-19 will seem like a slight ailment. At the beginning of 2022, according to the World Health Organization, about 5,700,000 people died from the coronavirus pandemic. And although the coronavirus pandemic will definitely get into the history textbooks, it is unlikely to be awarded an honorable place in the list of the greatest epidemics. Well, let's get started. Enjoy watching. Antonin's plague, or, as it is also called, Galen's plague, is named after a Greek doctor who lived in the Roman Empire, who described the disease. According to modern historians, it claimed the lives of 7 to 10 million people, despite the fact that the total number of inhabitants of the empire at that time was slightly more than 50 million. In densely populated cities such as Rome, Ephesus, and Athens, the plague wiped out up to a third of the population. Due to the developed trade routes, this disease has penetrated even to the most remote corners of the empire. Most likely, because of this plague, the Roman emperors Lucius Verus died in 169 and Marcus Aurelius in 180. The first cases of infection appeared during the Parthian War, 161 to 166, when the Romans captured and plundered Seleucia on the Tigris. Soon, the losses from the disease in the army became so great that Lucius Verus cancelled the attack on Media and dismissed the troops to their homes. This was the fatal decision that caused the disease to spread throughout the empire. The plague was named after the Byzantine Emperor Justinian I. And this, by the way, was the first recorded pandemic in history. It swept through North Africa, Europe, Central and South Asia, and Arabia, claiming more than 90 million lives. There is no consensus on where the disease came from. It was only in 2017 that scientists established that the causative agent of the plague was imported from China along with rodents, since it was possible to get infected both from the bite of an infected rat and from its fleas. The Black Death is one of the most famous pandemics in history, which claimed about 60% of the world's population. The virus was rampant in China, Mongolia, India, Syria, Egypt, and throughout Europe. Rat and human species of fleas have become the main carriers of the infection. The plague was terrifying because of its 99% lethality rate and because no one could figure out what caused the disease. As a result, pagan cults and superstitions revived throughout Europe, and hundreds of people were killed due to suspicions that they were poisoning wells or spreading the plague in other ways, and the Jews got the most of it. The reason was that they suffered less from the plague than the Christians. Mainly due to the fact that Jewish communities in medieval cities lived very separately, as well as due to the strict rules of personal hygiene prescribed by Judaism. Like the Justinian plague, the Black Death took place in two forms, bubonic and septic. And some patients had a pulmonary form. In this case, the disease was accompanied by coughing and hemoptysis. In many ways, the Black Death is compared to the Antonine plague, because it also had an impact on the economy, culture, and even the psychology of the entire population of Europe. Coqueliculi is a disease that has broken out in Mexico and Central America. It was brought there by the Spaniards, who arrived in the 16th century. The mortality rate from this disease was 90%. Because of it, the ancient Aztec civilization was virtually destroyed. Researchers are still arguing what kind of disease it was, either typhoid fever or hemorrhagic fever. Among the symptoms of the disease, fever, headache, darkened tongue, cramps, bleeding from the nose and ears were noted. Patients died 3 to 4 days after the onset of the disease. Interestingly, at first the disease affected young people, and older people survived more often, but over time it began to affect everyone. At the same time, the mass death was only among the local population. The Spaniards themselves either did not get infected with it, or they easily tolerated the disease. Therefore, many Europeans called this epidemic a divine punishment sent to the Indians for idolatry. They tried to treat this disease with the help of tyriac, a mixture of numerous herbs and minerals. The local plant coenapili was also used. But the effect of such drugs was zero. Cholera is a particularly dangerous acute intestinal infection with high mortality, with which humanity has been closely familiar since ancient times. Initially, cholera outbreaks occurred mainly only in India and Southeast Asia, only occasionally affecting Europe. But since the beginning of the 19th century, due to a mutation of the pathogen, according to some researchers, focal outbreaks of cholera have developed into pandemics. There are 7 in total. But the first 3 are considered the largest. Smallpox is the only virus that has been completely defeated. The World Health Organization announced its complete elimination in 1979. It is not known exactly where and when this disease came from. According to one version, it came from Africa or Asia in the 3rd millennium BC, according to another, according to genetic research, it passed to humans from camels in the Middle East at the beginning of our era. Having contracted smallpox, a person became covered with ulcers in a few days. At the same time, his temperature rose, and pain appeared in his extremities. In the later stages, delirium began, disturbances of consciousness and convulsions manifested themselves. Survivors could lose their eyesight, and almost all of them had scars on the site of ulcers after the disease. The H1N1 flu, Spanish flu, has killed more than 100 million people in just 2 years. The disease was rampant on absolutely all continents except Antarctica. The epidemic began at the end of the First World War, which is why it spread rapidly. Unsanitary conditions, vitamin deficiency, poor nutrition and crowding of people contributed to it. The first patients appeared in the United States, but military censorship forbade countries that participated in the war to report casualties among personnel due to illness. Therefore, neutral Spain was the first to announce the epidemic. The Spaniard had 2 features: high infection rate and rapid development of complications leading to death. During the disease, headache, low blood pressure, tachycardia, temperature spikes, and bloody cough were observed. But often the disease could pass without any symptoms. Moreover, interestingly, children and the elderly died from the flu much less often than people in their prime. The Spaniard disappeared suddenly. According to some scientists, the flu has mutated into less deadly strains. However, no one can firmly prove this. The date of the appearance of HIV is considered to be 1981, when the first clinical report appeared in the United States, which mentioned only 5 cases of infection in the United States. But in fact, the virus appeared much earlier. At the moment, it has been established that there are 2 strains of HIV, HIV-1 and HIV-2, but the most dangerous of them is HIV-1. The virus is usually spread through blood transfusion, sharing syringes, tattooing equipment, dental instruments, etc., sexually, from mother to child during pregnancy, childbirth and breastfeeding. Once in the body, it destroys the cells of the immune system. And when the immune system is sufficiently weakened, other diseases appear in the human body. This is AIDS, acquired immunodeficiency syndrome. There is no cure or vaccine for the virus. But there is antiretroviral therapy, which allows infected people to live up to 70 to 80 years, whereas an infected person lives only 9 to 11 years without treatment. At the moment, more than 40 million people have died from HIV and related diseases worldwide. So, you've watched a video about the worst epidemics in human history. If you liked the video, please like it, write comments and subscribe to the channel so that you don't miss the new video. Thank you all for watching.